So it was funny because during Thanksgiving, I remember doing right before Thanksgiving, I did a huge special with Stu Peters, and we were talking about what's scarier than goblins and ghouls, and I said it's Grandma coming over with her eighth booster, with her vaccine shedding, and anybody who says that shedding's not real, it's like look at anything that's a live attenuated virus, right? So after someone goes in and gets like a smallpox vaccine or a herpes vaccine, even a flu vaccine, they say don't be around immunocompromised or elderly people for 3 to 4 weeks. Like try to be very careful being around them. They knew that this was going to shed. So when you're talking about like let's just say a mold spore, right? A mold spore that can be anywhere from zero point zero 0.02 to zero point zero 0.03 microns in size. Most HEPA filters are going to one stop about 80% of a mold spore from going back into the air. But if you're not changing that filter often enough, it can then colonize. What most filters are
Oh.
not doing is they're not filtering viruses, they're not filtering heavy metals, they're not filtering vaccine shedded particles. So if you've got an area that's heavily concentrated with, let's say, barium or aluminum or even the common flu, anything that is floating around in your breathable airspace is going to have a positive charge. So what the triad air is doing is it's releasing between 12 to 15 million negative ions per cubic centimeter per second. Why that math? Because they were able to, per cubic mile, break down the amount of negative ions per square yard that were being produced when lightning strikes. So when lightning strikes, it creates ozone and it creates negative ions. Now, I've gone to over 275 conferences. We have over 14,000 chiropractors and doctors, ENTs, surgeons, and dental offices that use our machines. I will always get that one beautiful soul from California that will walk up to me and go, Ozone's so bad. And I go, absolutely. I go, in high concentrations, it is. I go, but if you go outside after a thunderstorm, what's the first thing instinctively that we do?
Yeah.
We go out and we take a
Oh, you're
deep
right.
breath.
It's like
Right?
everyone knows that. Like it's the air
And
after a
something,
thunderstorm.
something that you do, and back in the 80s, we would call it a thunderstorm in a box because this technology's been around since 1986. And I can tell you this is V3, which is the third version. And there's been over 25 upgrades that have been made year after year after year. But again, God doesn't get it wrong. I remember going on a podcast with Dr. Group and I was like asking him, I said, I know you've had these machines in your facilities and in your home for over 25 years. What do you say to somebody who says ozone's bad? And he goes, absolutely. He goes, water's bad. What? Water's bad? Yeah, you can't live without it. But if you drink 3 gallons of water in one sitting, you're gonna literally flush out all of the electrolytes in your kidneys and your liver, and you can die from water intoxication. So it's all about the variation, and it's about the moderation of running the machine properly inside of a home. You've got 3,000 to 4,000 square feet between 1 and 2 stories. There is no air purifier in the world that can compete and do what the Triad Air V3 will do because of the way that it was designed to be proactive. We are not waiting for the pollution, the pathogen, the mold to come to some filter and literally getting on our hands and knees and praying, God, please let this filter collect what I need to be collected. No, we're using science, years of engineers who had come together. If you go on LinkedIn and you look at Alan Johnston, the chief technology officer for air water healing, he worked for Raytheon Missile Defense. This guy literally wrote the guidance systems that protect the United States from intercontinental ballistic missile strikes. And I'm like, what made you decide that you really wanted to figure out a way to change the air purification industry? And what gave you that revelation that you needed to duplicate what Mother Nature did outside? And he goes, it's real simple. He goes, my wife got horrible allergies and we were going to have to move from Tennessee. I go, what? What do you mean? It's exactly, if you want something done right, have a woman have an issue and her husband be an engineer. That's all I'm gonna
That's
say.
the thing. It's like I find myself building chicken coops and doing all kinds of stuff, building gardens and all kinds of things for that. And actually, it's funny. So not funny, but it's sad. My wife has lung issues. She's not. She's healthy and she lives a normal life, but she's much more susceptible to mold or if there's a heavy chemtrailing day. Like I'm fine. I think it's probably because like I as a kid I grew up in the Midwest and I was a kid I was eating Fruit Loops and who knows what. So I think my body was kind of got used to all kinds of crap going through it and it probably normalized and it's not it's probably a bad thing that I'm not more sensitive because who knows what my body's kind of taking through it. But my wife though, if things are a little bit off, she notices instantly. Like in our basement, for instance, if there's a little bit of musty smell, she's like, "Seth, there's mold. There's mold. Get the ozone out. Ozone it tonight," and which I'll do it. So we've got a couple different ozone machines that we bought just for that, right? So if there's that musty smell in the basement, we'll hit it with the ozone overnight. Boom. Okay, we're good. But if we're out walking and they're chemtrailing, she's telling me, she's like, "Seth, my chest is tightening up. She's got drippy nose. She's coughing, and that night she'll oftentimes feel it because she just is sensitive to those chemicals. And I look at it and it's like, okay, you could say that's a problem, but it's almost a blessing because we should all be sensitive to chemicals that are going to kill us. But unfortunately,
Yeah.
most of us aren't. For a lot of Americans, they can eat a whole meal of McDonald's and feel okay afterwards, right? If she
Mm.
ate a whole meal, or if I now because I've really I eat very very healthy, like I'd probably fall down and die after eating a Big Mac and a large fry and a big thing of Coke, right? Because we just don't
Right.
have that. But it doesn't mean that it's not there in our environment that's and slowly eating away at us and killing us.
So on